If you run a growing personal injury law firm and just had your biggest year yet, but your books don't show a clear profit, you might be asking yourself, are we actually making money? Can I really afford hiring the next attorney? And here's the thing, your firm might be far more profitable than what it looks like on paper. You're not doing anything wrong, it's just that the data isn't presented to you in the right way. Hey there, my name is Martin. I have recently worked with a 7-figure PI firm owner. They just had their biggest year yet, more cases, more stuff, more everything. But the founder was looking at the books and telling me, Martin, this doesn't make any sense. The books tell me I'm losing money every month, but I know, based on all the work that we are doing, that my firm should be profitable. And the truth was, his firm was indeed profitable. The data wasn't just shown to him in the right way. And what happens is that contingency fee income comes months after the work has actually been performed by the team, which means that your books don't reflect the value that your team is generating in real time. So what we did is we implemented a dashboard for him that showed him 2 key metrics that I believe any PI firm owner must be tracking. Let's jump and see what those are. And these 2 metrics are the expected cash flow, which would be more so of a forward-looking metric, and accrual-based revenue, which will be more so a backwards-looking metric to analyze profitability. You've probably heard about the expected cash flow. This may be something more new and more creative, so let's dive deep into each one of them. So for expected cash flow, the process here is quite simple. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating a table of all your PI cases. You can do it directly, potentially in your case management system, and then export the data for analysis, connect it to analytics dashboard, such as what we did with this firm. But you can also kick things off with just simple Excel and be tracking that. So the process here is simple. For each one of the cases that you currently have open, what you're going to do is you're going to estimate the actual amount that you're going to receive on that case, right? So the estimated value of that case for your firm, your estimated fees. Now for this calculation, make sure that you adjust for any risk, right? So if it's, for example, 50-50 case, could be a bigger number, could be a small number, make sure to select something more in the middle so you have a more realistic picture, let's say, of what payouts you're going to receive. In addition to that, for the months that you're going to place the payout in, make sure that you adjust for when your firm is actually expected to receive the money, right? So adjusting for any liens that may be covered, etc. When is your firm actually getting paid, and that cash will hit your bank account. So in here we have just an example of a few cases, right? As you can see in the different months, all the payouts that are going to be received, right? We're going to be analyzing this Jameson case as well in the next graph. That's why it's highlighted in here, right? So its payout is in September. And based on that, we can generate a graph that will look like this, which will let us know the total amount of money that we expected to receive in each one of the months, right? Now, this is obviously very important. Then we can actually start making hiring decisions based on this, understanding how much money we'll have to invest in each one of the coming months. Now, a lot of firms, would potentially do this, but then really stop at this. And what ends up happening is that your books, your actually profit and loss statement that your bookkeeper is preparing for you, ends up as well looking something like this. So, for example, in September we had a 32K month, right? But it looks like in January, February, March, June, and July, our team was, sitting there fiddling their thumbs and wasn't actually generating any value for the firm. Is this true? Absolutely not, right? Because a lot of times these cases take months, potentially even years sometimes. So what we need to be accounting for is understanding the fact that our team is performing work, right? They're generating future value for the firm. The thing is, this value isn't just shown on the books. And if you talk to your bookkeeper about this issue, he'll probably tell you that you can't really do much about it. And the reason being is with contingency fee practice, first of all, the amount that you're receiving is actually in the future. And second of all, you don't know exactly when you're going to receive it, and you don't know exactly how much you're going to receive it. So any respectable bookkeeper will tell you that based on general accounting principles, you're not really able to modify your books and enter that value as already revenue or sales generated for your firm. So what do we do about it? And that's where this accrual-based PR revenue approach really comes in. It's not something you're going to be doing directly in your books. Again, I explained the reasons why that wouldn't really work. But that is something you can overlay on top of your firm financials to get a better, truer profitability analysis of your firm. And so let's actually see how we calculate it and how it works in practice. So let's look at our Jameson lead that we previously saw, right? So in September, we're getting the payout. If we recall, it was $9.5 grand, right, that we're receiving for this case. And let's imagine that we hired the case in April, right? And then we got the payout in September. What we're going to do is we're going to do a simple math calculation. We're going to calculate the number of months, right, from April to September, which is 6, right? And what we're going to do is just divide 9,500 by 6, giving us about 1.5K per month. And so what we're going to enter then is in between the months of April and September. For this particular case, we're going to enter that amount, 1.5K, each month, right? Culminating with September when we actually get the payout. So what perspective then does this data give us? It essentially then shows that in, for example, this Jameson lead, right? In our case, your team is generating every month some value, right? Which is then ultimately, stops as soon as the case actually gets paid, your team stops working on it. Now, is it an absolute true profitability, right? Doesn't make sense that in a PI case, you would be doing the work, exactly the same amount of work each month? No, but it is a quite simple calculation, right? It's an approximation. And it's definitely better than just logging all of that in the final months. You can obviously apply some more complex calculation here. For example, I don't know, the first 3 months you apply 60% of the value, and the rest of the months it will be the remaining, right? But again, start things simple, just divide it by the number of months, and have the same amount in each month that the case is being worked on. And so if we then do this for all of our cases, as you can see over here, and again, this is more so of a backwards looking data, so we can actually already know what were the exact payouts that we have received in the last months. What then ends up happening is that our revenue then, instead of looking something like this, right, where apparently no value is generated the first 3 months of the year, etc., then it's actually becomes something much more stable, as you can see, right? Much more gradual. And obviously in here, for the purpose of example, we just have a few cases, right? So we have like this increase and then a drop off. But obviously, if your firm is generating more cases, this graph will either be stable or potentially even move up, right? And what we can then do is we can then apply this data over here. We're going to replace whatever we have in our books in terms of the actual money that came in through the payouts, the sales that we have in our books for the PR revenue. We're going to replace it with these totals over here, and then we're going to keep the part of the costs, right? And so what will then provide us is how much revenue is generated in our PI cases every month, right, for the past X number of months, and then the costs for that month. So we have a true profitability, let's say, of that particular month based on the value that is being generated by your team and the actual costs that you had in terms of paying your staff, software subscriptions, office supplies, etc., etc., etc. Case in point, if we look at just 3 of the months and a sample, let's say profit and loss statement, let's assume that the costs that you have for your firm are about $12,000 every month. Now, in the cash-based approach and the one that you actually will be using in your books, what you're going to see is the profit is jumping up and down, right? We are negative in April and May, and in June, we just barely made a profit. But we actually look at the accrual-based profit and loss, right? So we replace our income in here, right? We replace our income with the values that we get in the 3 months in here, right, from this table. We can actually see that the firm is profitable and is actually making quite a healthy profit, right? The thing is, obviously, right, that money is just not yet received. And look, a side note, this will be less relevant for firms that have more or less a stable caseload, right? Because then you almost enter this like conveyor like effect where new case coming in, some cases the old case getting paid, right? And so your revenues and your costs in a given month are more or less stable. However, if your firm is changing size, right, either you're growing or actually you're decreasing in size, then this data becomes much more important because it only gives you then projections for the future in terms of can you be making certain hiring decisions, can you be making certain investments in marketing, etc. But then also gives you a better idea of how well have you actually performed in the last months. For example, right, when I worked with that firm, their books were showing they're unprofitable, but it's because they had all these cases lined up that haven't actually gotten paid, right? And their firm actually had started quite recently, just about a year ago, and so there was practically no revenue on their books, right, from PI cases. Now, was it the fact that they weren't actually generating any value? Absolutely not, right? The important thing here is, in this case where you're growing or you're just starting your firm, then obviously you'll need to pass through this, let's say, sucky period where you have to make those investments into your people, into marketing, etc., right? You on work in these cases, but you haven't actually gotten paid for it, right? And so that's why both of these metrics are important. The cash flow will tell you whether you actually losing cash or gaining cash, what investments can you make. The accrual-based revenue will tell you, is your firm profitable, right? Is what you're doing right now sustainable, and can you be the same like 3, 6 months, 12 months down the year as the case volume picks up and you start receiving those payouts. And see, this isn't just about beautiful looking dashboards. It's about making smarter business decisions in terms of hiring, right? You cannot confidently hire the next attorney if you don't know when the revenue is going to catch up. It's about marketing, right? You may post that marketing campaign that is working just because the cash is getting tied. Even so, profitability is strong, and you may give up on the practice potentially altogether if you're just starting out. And finally, it's about strategic growth, right? And making those investments. If you don't have forward visibility, you're really flying blind. And we have implemented the system for several law firms. The law firm owner that I talked about at the beginning of the video, he was finally able to see the true profitability of his firm and make the next hiring decision of the next attorney more confidently. Even if your books tell you otherwise, you may be sitting on hundreds of thousands of revenue that you've earned, but that is delayed. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you can start simple, just start with simple Excel, but obviously as your firm grows, it will become harder to manage that. So that's why actually for our clients, we build interactive dashboards that sync with their data directly from their case management system, Clio Manage, for example, and provide this real-time view of these and other metrics. And so if you're running a PI firm and want to see the true profitability of your practice, book a free strategy call with my team and myself. We'll build a reporting system for you that shows you exactly how much value you're building and what's ahead. Or join my free legal tech and analytics community where I share this exact dashboard and the model for cash flow and accrual-based revenue analysis that we use with our clients. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you got value out of this.